Hello all, welcome to Code++. In this video we will see how to make a flower using JavaScript. In our earlier video, which you can see in the card above, we saw how to use HTML and CSS to make a flower. You can watch that video before watching this video. Now coming back onto our code. In this file index.html, we are going to have a flower box class. And in our earlier code we had something like this, a div container of flower box having 9 divs from petal 1 to petal 8 and a central div. And with the help of these we made a flower. But in our case, this time we are going to generate these inside divs using JavaScript and give them some styling using also JavaScript. And before we move on to JavaScript, I have already put some style in the style.css. So in this style.css, for the body I have given a background color of a light sky blue and a flower box having some properties, and the result is in the browser, which we can see. Here it is. So we have the sky blue background color and a box having a border of blue 2 pixel, and inside it there is nothing as of now. Now we will start to add some JavaScript code. Instead of a separate file, I am writing the script over here. So first of all, we need to create or select a flower box div, which is over here on line number 24. So what we will do is we will use a query selector. So we will use some meaningful variable name, flower box, that would be more accurate, and use document dot query selector having a class of flower box. Using this we can select the class or div in the body. Now in order to have 8 petals we need 8 div boxes, and for this we would use a for loop and a function called creatElement as well as setAttribute and appendChild. Now in order to create petals we need a for loop so that we can use the loop each time to create a div petal and attach it to the container flower box. So here it is how we are going to do it. For, let us suppose a variable as 0 and it should be less than 8 because the loop is to run 8 times and we have to create 8 divs, and we'll give it some meaningful name, suppose div petal. Now this var div petal would be inside this for scope only, outside it would not be recognizable. So document, we would use a property called creatElement, and voila. So now it will create a div and we need to append that div inside the flower box, which we are going to do now. But before that we are going to give this div petal a class of petal. So this is how we do it. Div petal dot set attribute, and that attribute would be class and its name would be petal, and now attach it to the flower box div which we have selected just before this for loop. So it will be flower box div dot append child, and we have the div petal over here. So these 8 divs that have been created just now would be attached to the flower box div. Also we are having a central div which will create just now, and after that we will see the result in our browser. And for the central div we will have where div central part is equal to document dot create element, and it is also a div, and we need to give this div central element central part an attribute of class having the name central, and we also need to append it to the flower box div. Central part. Save it, and now we go on to our browser to see the results. So here we have the box, nothing there. We'll open the inspect, and inside the inspect we would see that in the body tag we have all the divs created as shown here with a class of petal and a class of central div has been created. So this is how in a dynamic way we can create divs using JavaScript. Moving on to our code. So what we had earlier, we had 8 petals. Now in order to use those 8 petals, we will need to give them some properties, some styling. But before that, we need to collect those 8 div petals in an array. So that is what we are going to do now using document.querySelectAll. So we will type var petal array is document.querySelectAll with a class name of petal. And for each petal array or for each item of the petal array, we would apply some CSS. So the CSS property has to be stored somewhere in a form of string so that we can apply that CSS string. So here we will use another variable to do it. Var petal style string and the backticks with a width of 50 pixel. I'm going to fast forward now. Now the petal array is ready with its style string, and the style string has not been applied to the elements of the petal array. And to apply the style string to the items of the petal array, we will use forEach loop. So we will have petal array for each item and an arrow function, and inside that we will simply use item.style is equal to petal style string. Save the program and see the result on the browser. So we will have these petals, but they have not been placed and given any position because we have not applied the property of absolute. But other than that, like in the previous video, we have the petals arranged on the left side of the container. Now in order to place these petals inside the box on appropriate positions, we need to use the property of absolute. So we'll give it a property of absolute. So position would be absolute and save it. But when we go on the browser, we see that all the petals have been placed on the top left corner of the box. These are 8 petals placed simultaneously on each other. So in order to give them different positions, we need different coordinates for all these petals individually. So that is what we are going to do now, and we are going to use an array of objects. So we are going to make an array of objects, and for that we will use var petal positions, and that's it. ID of 1 and top of 132 pixel and a left of 212 pixel. This is the object 1 inside the petal position array. Similarly, we can have top and left attribute to be used inside the petal array elements. And yes, the ID has been given in order to increase the readability of the code, and it would be easier to identify which petal we are referring to. So I'm going to fast forward the code now. Now we have the array ready. First of all, we would need to have an index so that we can access the elements of the array, that is the array named as petal positions. So here we would have a variable as index and initialize it with 0. Now in the item.style petal style string, this petal style string would contain all these properties as shown on line number 40. But along with those properties, we need to add the top and left positions inside the style, and that is what we are going to do and use this array petal positions here. So in order to do this, we need to type item.style.top. Now we are accessing the top attribute inside the style for this item, and we will use petal positions index top. So that is how we access the top stored here inside this id of 1. So right now, for the first time when the loop will run, index will be having 0 value, so it will be petal positions index of 0 dot top, that is this value 132 pixel. And similarly, when the loop will increment, when we will increase the index variable value one by one, so the different tops would be available, and similarly later on the different lefts would be available. That is what we are going to do in the code now. So it would be item.style.left is petal positions index dot left. Make it a bit beautiful. Yeah, that would do. And don't forget to increment the index, otherwise it would not work properly. Now save it, keep our fingers crossed, and let us see the result on the browser. So here we have all the petals placed in this fashion, and our only thing left is the central div. Now we have already created the central div. We need just the styling for it and to attach that styling to our central part. So let us do it. So I'm going to declare a variable central part style string is equal to, and I'm going to write the properties. Now the properties for the CSS styling have been made inside the central part style string. We need just to apply this to the central part. Now the central part we had created earlier in the form of div. So we will use it, and where it was here. So we'll copy that variable's name, paste it here, and use style is equal to central part style string, and save the program and go to our browser, and voila, we have the flower. And I want to show you one thing also. So let us go back to the browser, and if we inspect inside the body, what we are seeing is the flower box, and we can see that all those properties have been applied as we had dynamically created from the JavaScript. So this is the central div, this is the div petal 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and so this is how the properties have been applied, and a job well done. So if you are new to this channel, subscribe it. There are more videos to come. If you have any doubts, you can put it in the comment section. Like the video, share the video, and thank you for watching the channel. Stay connected.